let's explore knowing self, knowing awakened awareness, knowing this from our five senses, and just see how each of us know this self, this pervasive self. And this is what I'm calling leaning back. And then we'll lean forward and have some fun with that surfing image, with what's arising in the foreground, how aliveness is arising in us, how our parts arise, and just to see about surfing those, enjoying those, embracing those, welcoming those. Just before we dive, is there anything bubbling that kind of needs to be said, that's wanting to be said before we take our little, before we have our explorative fun? All right. Then let's start with the sense of feeling, of feeling. Through your sensation, through sensing, feeling, how do you know what we call self? How do you know your intrinsic beingness? How do you know this presence that doesn't come and go? How do you know that? These exquisite bodies of ours through feeling. Can you find, as you feel, as you sense your body, perhaps is there a tingling? Can you find a tingling in your fingers? A tingling in your toes? What is that? Is there a vibration here in the body? Can you feel a vibration, a frequency, a tingling that perhaps doesn't come and go, that's always here? What do you know of this that doesn't come and go, that you can feel? And perhaps it's not an object that's being felt. This that is feeling is that which is felt. And then from here, is there a boundary to this that is being felt? Is it possible that this vibration is what you're surrounded by in the objects in your room? In Kashmir Shaivism, they call this the pulsation of being. What's your version of that, of knowing the pulsation of being, vibration? And it's so welcome if it's like, no, Sid, it's not like that at all. I feel this beingness differently. And then from here, what if we move to the sense of hearing? But as we move to hearing, let's stay right here in this pulsation of being and the vibration that we might experience here in the body and beyond. If you listen closely, can you find a sound to that vibration? Can you find a sound to the vibration, to the pulsation? 2,000 years ago in the Upanishads, I think it was there, they gave it a word. They gave it this word, the sound Om, AUM, that was the sound of this pulsation of being. And for some, they know it as a constant hum. It's as the sound of silence. V, who you all know, who comes to a number of the groups, for her, it's constant. Self is always here as sound. In India, they even have a yoga around this. They call it Nada Yoga. Sometimes they call it the unstruck sound because there's no object. Like when we hear sound, there's an object and it's being received. The idea of unstruck sound, this hum, this vibration. What is the sound of silence? In Christian mysticism, they call it the word before the word. In Sufism, they call it the eternal music. What do you hear? And then to shift senses. And perhaps these two can keep going. There can be a sense of the feeling, the vibration of beingness, the pulsation of beingness, while you're listening for the sound of silence, this hum. And then if we go to sight, how do you see this that doesn't come and go? This that is our intrinsic nature, this beingness. How is it seen? For some, seeing is the most accessible portal to this, and they call it beauty. When they see a sunset, when they see a child, when they're in nature, they call it beauty. Does your system open to beingness in that way? For others, they just close their eyes and something happens when their eyes are closed. It's as if they become the galaxy with what they see. And for some, it's shapes, it's like a kaleidoscope. And through that seeing, through closing your eyes and seeing this infinite space, there's even a sense of identification shifts from me who's seeing to being the space. There's no object, we just become that space. Notice this with your eyes closed. Does localization, does a sense of localization, can it shift at all or broaden? Can the lens open through seeing? How do you see being? The next two senses for me are more difficult. Taste. How do we taste this essential essence? How do you taste it? When you taste, is there a me and an object that is being tasted, or is there just tasting? Is there no distance? And what's the difference in you of tasting from a part and tasting from self? Notice from a part, there's a tasting from a want and a comparison and a preference. What's it like to taste from self, where there's just experiencing with no lack? How do you taste beingness? And just as we're doing this, before we go to the last sense, there's tasting, there's seeing with the eyes open or closed. How do you see beingness? There's hearing. Can you hear beingness now? And there's feeling. feeling, this pulsation of being. And our last one is smelling. Smell. Is that too much of a reach? Or can you smell this essence, this self? Can you smell it? And just to notice if there's a spiritual achiever that shows up. Oh, I should be able to sense through my five senses this differently. That's just a spiritual achiever. We're most curious about each of our unique systems, just like V, who just hears it. Of those five senses, which one gives you the most access? If you were to take refuge, I want to take refuge in self. I need a break. My back is just, it's hurting too much. I need a break. Which sense gives you most immediate access to the peace, the imperturbable beingness, this that can't be diminished or enhanced? And isn't it kind of neat that you've got these five senses, these five portals to self? So for me, we're metaphorically playing with this is the leaning back. We've been leaning back into self, knowing self through our five senses. From here, from this resting, from this peace, and perhaps this oneness, this that is inseparable. Let's just lean forward just a little bit and notice what's the voice that's here? What's the part? Does it need to be a big one? Just like, what's the first whisper you hear of a voice here? Gosh, that smelling thing, that was really hard. Or I don't know if I like this so much. This is uncomfortable. Or what am I going to eat later? I'm hungry. What's the first arising in your system? And what's the part? What's the part what part would you call that? And as you notice that, is there a response of something like, no, 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 I don't want to go there. I want to go back to feeling the beingness, to seeing or hearing it. I want to rest back in that causeless okayness. Just notice if there's any response to the parts, to the voice that arises. And then what happens when we just stay here and even lean towards it a little bit? And this was the surfing metaphor I was playing with, and that might work for you, or please come up with your own. But the inquiry is, can it be enjoyed? It's like a little different than welcoming. Can it be enjoyed? How the self is manifesting as a part, is manifesting as a preference, and perhaps as some contraction, like Ethan was describing, his protective system that was responding to his back. As the part arises in us, as the narrative, the contraction, is it possible that it can just be welcomed? And it could be, I'm living right now where there are a lot of surfers and they get so excited about the waves. Could it be, whoa, look at this wave? How this beingness, this water, this ocean is coming into form as a part, as a wave. Could we enjoy this? What's that like in your system? No pushing. What's it like to be with the wave? Is there resistance to the wave? And can you also find curiosity about the wave? Oh, wow, there's a wave here. What's that like? What's that part like? What's that resistance like? This that doesn't want this to be here. And that's, I think that's enough for starters. That was a lot to play with. And in a moment, we'll just kind of start coming back together. But as we do that, let me ask you a question. How are you? How are you? Just to notice whatever narrative voices are here, whatever parts. And then how are you? What's the background? What's the flavor, the feeling, the sound of beingness? How are you? What's it all being held in? What's your experience? Because that's, as always, that's what we're interested in. We're interested in you. How are you? And can there be simultaneous awareness of the beingness, of self, of the okayness that might be through the senses, or it might just be here? It might just be a spaciousness. Simultaneous awareness of that, this background, and the stage, the foreground of our precious expressions, of our parts, of our waves. Can there be awareness of all of this?